Hey everybody, Bob Chick back with TLR, and look who's with us. It wouldn't be an Olympia without the best of the best in our midst. Back on the last rep, Peter McGough. How are you, my friend?
I'm fine, Bob. It's great to be here. Really looking forward to previewing the contest, the Mr. Olympia.
Well, we sure got a good one on our hands, Peter, and unfortunately, if people don't know by now, unfortunately, you were unable to attend the event, and obviously we were, I'm sure you're as disappointed as anybody. But man, we were really looking forward to having you there, Peter, and seeing this live. So.
Yeah, I've got an ear infection that just cropped up, and I can't get on a plane. So, the only person happy about it is Phil Heath, because obviously he won't have fierce competition this year around.
Yeah, well, he was telling me about that, but well, listen, we'll obviously do the best we can without you there, and obviously we'll be thinking of you. However, we do have a preview now, and of course, I know you'll be active all weekend long from your home office there in Fort Myers, Florida, of course, Peter. Well, listen, what can we say? It's the 52nd Olympia. We've got storyline after storyline, the best of the best, obviously there. Levrone back in the mix, Phil Heath going for 6, Flex Lewis going for 5. So there's a whole bunch of returning champs and a lot on the line here, Peter.
Yeah, and obviously the story of the year has been Kevin Levrone. Here's a guy coming back at 51 after 13 years out. We've seen pictures. Sometimes it's been difficult to figure out, how far ahead he is or whatever. But the suspense will build, actually, because I hear that they're going to have him on second to last on the night, prejudging. He'll come out just before Phil. And he's going to get ready in a different area, so there'll be no
oh boy
shots cropping up from backstage until he actually walks out on stage there. So we're all waiting to see it. It could be the bodybuilding story of the decade. It could be a bust. We just don't know at this stage.
Well, that's interesting because I would think Kevin would want to kind of be out there with the guys, and I mean, talking about the backstage area, the pump-up area. As you know, you've been backstage many times at the Orleans. It's a very spacious area. There's a lot of room for the guys, lots of pump-up equipment, and it's pretty much a gym that they assemble there. I would think he'd want to be kind of a part of what's going on. I mean, let's face it, he's probably not coming back this way again, even if he goes on circuit, as he has kind of changed his mind a little bit last time we had him on here, which I applaud. I think he should hit a couple of shows. I think this is a long way to come to just do a show, be at the Olympia. But I would think he'd want to be a part of what's happening there.
Well, yeah, given Kevin's personality, he's very much a people's person. I mean, back in the day when he was competing, all the other guys would be lying down, sitting down.
Sure.
He'd be doing the rounds, talking to him. You've seen him yourself. Part of that was his psyching out, saying, "Look at me, I'm full of energy." And he would say something to somebody like, "Is that tricep all right now?" That was part of his gamesmanship. So although that's the plan for him, whether he'll go along with it or not, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, I think even if he starts out like that, I agree with you. I think Kevin's got the kind of personality. He's got to get out there. He's got to be loose. And I don't know. It would make me more nervous if I was locked up in the back somewhere else. I don't see nobody. I just come out. But we'll see. I mean, I think you got to get him out there for some pictures. I think you got to get him out there pumping up and, shake some of the cobwebs off. Listen, it's been 13 years, Peter. A lot has changed since last time Kevin Levrone was on stage. Clearly the only person that was even remotely around back then was Dexter Jackson, who's still around. We'll get into him in a minute. So the Kevin Levrone story, like I say, it's a big old question mark out there as to what we're going to see. What's your gut instinct? Do we see a revival of 1996? Do we see a decent Kevin but not as good? Or do we see a guy who you say, all right, I like that we saw him, but it ain't happening?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see a best ever Kevin. That'd be too much. If he does it, that'll be absolutely sensational. Personally, I mean, both of us have known Kevin over 20 years. Personally, I don't want to see him embarrassed, and I don't think he will be. I think if he comes on there and puts on a good show, and if there's a top 10 place there, if he gets into that, that will be a tremendous accomplishment. I just don't want to see him embarrassed, and I don't think he will be. But it's too much to hope for that he would. If he gets in the top 6, that will be remarkable. But I see him sort of 8th, 9th, 10th, something like that.
Even that would be remarkable, given this lineup, which we'll go down in a moment. Even to get to that, even to get to 10th. Now, listen, top 10 in the world of anything should be applauded. A guy coming back at his age, 13 years removed, even more incredible. But I can give you 10 names right now that are going to be pretty difficult for him to stand there with. We all know the top guys. You got Phil, you got Dexter, you got Big Ramy, you got Sean Roden. I mean, there's 4 right there. Now you get into kind of your, I don't know what I'll call your second tier, for lack of better. And you got, you got Dallas McCarver, you got Cedric McMillan, you got Victor Martinez, you got, and Rulli Winkler.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's another. I mean, that right there. I mean, that would be an accomplishment. And then I haven't even mentioned like a William Bonac, Nathan DeAsha, Josh Lenarowicz, the new kid. I tell you what, man, it is loaded up. If he can do that, I think it would be tremendous. But I don't want to get caught up too much on the Kevin story because I want to rewind a little bit, Peter. Before we get backstage, before we come out for the prejudging, before we do all that, we've got the press conference. Now, this is not your mother's press conference. Not that your mother ever had one. But as you all know, Peter, we've changed this up considerably over the years. And this is not what Kevin's used to. Last time Kevin was in a press conference, I think they still had the suits going on, and Wayne was up there, and there was a whole bunch of nothing going on. It's very confrontational. It's very back and forth. Nobody's shy out there, especially Phil. How do you think Kevin's going to react to the press conference?
Well, you know him. He's Mr. Personality. It will be, obviously. It used to be just people trolling up to a microphone and asking how I get ready for a contest, which is not relevant to who's going to win Olympia. But he'll have some fun with it. I don't think he's, look at the guy. He's done what? He's won 20-odd contests, competed in 70. This is not new to him, and Olympia's not new to him. So he won't be overawed, even given these circumstances. He won't be nervous. I think he'll be loose and friendly. I think he'll say some funny things, maybe some outrageous things. So I think he'll deal with it well. And he's good at repartee. One thing I'd like to just sort of go back on, when you're reeling off those names of 10 people who could maybe finish ahead of him, I agree with you totally if they're in shape. But the last few years, we've always looked at the lineup and said, wow, this is the greatest lineup ever. And then when they come on, maybe only 4 or 5 are really, really in shape. I bet Kevin is in shape. He might not have the muscle, but he'll get conditioned, I'm sure of that. So that'll be to his advantage. But yeah, I think he'll deal with the press conference pretty well.
Also to Kevin's advantage is the fact that 3 of the perennial top 10 and certainly the perennial top 5 not in the show. And that would be, of course, Branch Warren, Dennis Wolf, and Kai Green not in the show this year. Those are 3 guys that could catapult him into the top 10. And certainly nobody else in the top 6 is sweating that these guys ain't there.
Yeah, that's correct. It's like they'll be thinking, well, there's a couple of notches. They don't think, oh, it's a shame Kai's not in it. It's like, well, I can move up a notch now. That's the
right.
nature of the whole thing.
Well, and as you remember, Dexter from the last 2 years now saying, look, I don't care if Kai sits out. Matter of fact, I'll tell him to sit out every year. I'll be more than happy to cash those checks. And speaking of which, not too far behind Kevin is Dexter Jackson. This is just a remarkable story, Peter. Dexter Jackson continues to impress. He continues to get better. I saw a guest posing of him a week or 2 ago. Absolutely phenomenal. I got him challenging for the top spot again. I do, I do believe Phil obviously will retain. I think he's going to be better than ever. We'll get into that in a second. But you can't discount Dexter, the only other guy on that stage to have won that Olympia. Yeah,
I mean, Dexter is, I saw those shots as well. And I'm thinking he's his best ever.
Yeah.
That's how good he looked. And, it's like Phil holds the championship, done it 5 times now. And it's usually the case that you beat the champion by playing his game. The nearest one to him in that is Dexter, the completeness, the the detail that is the fullness. He's the closest to Phil in that sense, the physique priority. And I think I see him as second, yeah. Or, if Phil screws up, he could even reclaim the title. That would be the hell of a story after 8 years, returning to the Olympia stage and winning.
Speaking of Phil screwing up, or not, I got to be honest, I don't see Phil doing that this year. I think his attention, I think he's laser focused. Not that he always isn't, but, I think even more so. I think he's got a point to prove this year, and it's beyond just getting number 6, of course, which puts him into some pretty elite waters, obviously, with the likes of Dorian Yates. However, I think Phil has to prove something to himself and to the fans that he can come out. Now, traditionally, Peter, as we've noted, Phil does not come out firing with both barrels on Friday. He usually has to kind of get better on Saturday, and it always seems like he's either on the edge or coming from behind even or whatever, and he's managed to do this 5 times. But that well is eventually going to run dry. Does Phil Heath need to come out with both barrels blasting on Friday night this year?
Well, I had a conversation with him at the weekend, and to put you fully in the picture, there's been 2 or 3 Olympias where before the Olympia he's told me certain things that were not to his advantage. Mm-hmm. So he'd be honest with me, I'm sure. He says he's going to beat his all-time best. He's going to prove a point, and he used the word. He said to me, "It's a shame you're not going to be there to watch me destroy the opposition." So
right.
He's fired up, and I believe that he's going to deliver. The gift will be delivered this year.
I agree completely. I think we may see the best Phil Heath we've seen since 11 and 12. I don't think he cares less who's there and who's not there, I should say. Yeah. I think he knows that at his best that these guys probably can't beat him. As he's proven 5 times over. So it's not like he would be out of character to think that. I mean, he should absolutely think that as the champ. If Phil Heath shows up at 100% and Dexter shows up at 100%, even the best Dexter Jackson of all time, I don't think he's got enough firepower to beat Phil.
No, as I said before, Dexter's the closest to him, but he doesn't have nobody has that crazy detail that Phil's got, apart from possibly David Henry in the 2-on-2s, but he's a bit shallow in the legs, but he's got that back detail with all the crazy stuff going on. So, yeah, Phil at his best is I think, pretty much unbeatable.
Well, Peter, I had Ronnie Coleman on just this past week giving his insights into the Olympia, and nobody better than an 8-time Olympian. He has literally walked the walk many times over. He seems very impressed with Phil. I mean, he made it very clear that he almost laughs about it, that he thinks Phil is literally on a different level than these guys, and that people can't really appreciate that until you're there and up close and you see this guy. But he made no bones about it that Phil was his pick. Dexter is certainly a formidable opponent for Phil, but I think Phil would have to come in off a little bit. But it brings me into Sean Roden, and I think the battle for second will be much closer than the battle for first. Has Sean Roden made the necessary gains or improvements to challenge Dexter for second place?
Well, he's looked a lot bigger this year in the off-season and coming into the contest. His back looks bigger and thicker. But they're gains he's made this year. And unfortunately, when you start dieting down, the gains you made last are the first to go, aren't they? So we'll see whether that improved back comes through when he's, fully depleted and ready for the contest. But he's got a tremendous physique. I mean, when he first walks out, it's just art. It's just like a sculpture, that you would. It's perfect. Everything's there. The narrow waist and hips, the thighs flaring out. The whole shape of the guy looks tremendous. Does he sort of explode when he starts posing? I'm not so sure.
Well, I think what hurts Roden the most, I think he can hang decently from the front, and I say that because Sean Roden's arms are not his best point. Clearly, his legs are more developed than his upper body, in my opinion. He's done tremendous work to get that upper body to match a little bit better. But the problem is when you're standing next to Phil Heath, whose arms are his best body part, that's not going to help your cause. But where I think he honestly doesn't do himself any favors when he turns around. Phil is tremendous from the back. I mean, literally from head to toe. From the back, there ain't anything weak there. I don't. That's something I look at and I go, I don't think you can do much better than that for what Phil's got to work with. That's 100% from the calves right on up, up into the shoulders and the arms, and obviously Phil has improved his back tremendously from when he first turned pro, as we both know. So that's where I'm not so sure. He would have to improve dramatically at this point to get that upper body. But can you do that at Sean's age and with this many years in the gym?
No, like I say, I mean, Dorian Yates once said to me, when a bodybuilder gets to be a pro, and he's been a pro for a couple of years, and he talks about a lagging body part, well, he's probably had 8 to 10 years to take care of that. Why would it suddenly sprout now? It's probably a genetic malfunction, that he hasn't got that body part. You talk about Phil. If we talk about Phil at his best, let's go back to 2011 when he walked out and just blew everybody away. When he hit that back double bicep shot, and you're absolutely right, everything is there, calves, hams, dare I say it, glutes, lower back, a whole lot. That, I would argue, we've never seen a better back double bicep pose than what Phil showed us that night. So that's the mountain you've got to climb when you go against Phil from the rear. And
that's pretty big endorsement because obviously Dorian Yates, who I know you're very fond of, from the back redefined the sport as we know it. And Ronnie Coleman, his successor, also obviously, again, the old Olympias are one from the back. We all of a sudden started to hear that moniker. Clearly, if that notion is true, then Phil Heath has a distinct advantage there. But he's certainly in that grouping of two other guys to me who just dominate from the back. But, we've singled out 3 guys pretty much with those 3, Phil, Sean, and Dexter, as obviously being your top 3. Now is where we get into muddied waters, Peter. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I mean, this is all over the place. Like I say, without Wolf there, okay, he's gone. Branch, gone. Kai, not in the show. It's wide open. Now, you got Big Ramy. He's big, but are we finally going to see the emergence of what Ramy has to offer? Has he streamlined the legs a little bit? Has he gotten a little bit deeper cuts? Has he gotten the muscle maturity, Peter, to move up those ranks? He did beat Sean Roden and Wolf in Prague last year.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he did improve last year, I feel. But remember, this is his 4th Olympia. And from when he made his debut in 2013 at New York Pro, we've been waiting. Yeah, if he gets in shape, if he can, carve this detail, if he can do this, if he can do that. It's a bit like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, right.
And we're not really, I mean, I wish he would. I mean, to see Ramy in true contest shape and make all the right improvements, that would be the 7th, 8th wonder of the world, as it were. But I'm not sure that he's had, maybe the first year too much was expected, but, maybe by last year he'd been around for a couple of years, 2.5 years. Maybe that he could have made those improvements. He's now under a new coach. We'll see what happens.
Hypothetically, and these are always fun to do, but if Ramy nails it, and I mean dead on, like he is just diced up, where does that put him in there? He's certainly not going to be prettier than Phil or Dexter in any way, shape, or form, but that's a pretty impressive physique at God knows how much he's weighing in these days, 280-something pounds in contest shape at the Olympia. If Ramy nailed it dead nuts on, where does that put him?
If he made all the improvements that we've been waiting for and saying he should do, and streamlines his physique and gets that condition, to be honest, I mean, we're in fantasy land, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But that Ramy could possibly win the whole thing. And I certainly think he could be 2nd or 3rd at least. I mean, he's much bigger than Phil anyway, but he's so much bigger than Dexter that if he does get it together, I think he would maybe pick Dexter purely on size, just standing next to him.
Well, this is where it gets interesting. Obviously, we're going to have to wait and see. We're all hoping that Ramy brings his best, and he's made those improvements because he's a tremendous talent. And you're right, he's bigger than anybody on the stage. So a guy that big to have a small waist and bring that conditioning in would be a sight to behold. We haven't even mentioned the name yet of Cedric McMillan. And Peter, you and I have been doing this for years, with pre-contest and analysis and all that. Does Cedric match in this lineup? Is he going to be the odd man out with a phenomenal physique, but he just seems to be different than the other guys? I think that can help him tremendously, or maybe hurt him.
Yeah, I mean, again with Cedric, we say, well, if he was sharper, but he was sharper in one contest last year, but he seemed to lose a bit of his size and presence, so
Sure.
That's a danger for him. I mean, he's obviously got that, that tremendous shape and flow to his physique. I get a feeling with Cedric that he just grows the way he wants to go. He knows people say get ripped, get ripped, get ripped. I don't think he's prepared to do that because that's not his idea of physique. It's not like, I just get the feeling it's a personal thing. Most bodybuilders, if we said to them, look, the winning combination now is to have one calf 4 inches bigger than the other.
Right.
One calf 4 inches because they want to win. Cedric's a little bit different. He's a very intelligent guy. He's a funny guy. And I think he's sort of satisfied with his place almost in the bodybuilding world, or with the way he looks. He doesn't want to compromise anything. So I don't expect this to be a big breakthrough for Cedric. Hope to hell I'm wrong, but I don't see it. I think he'll get in there, but he's never been in this high level of competition before. He did one previous Olympia, but last year he didn't even get there. When you reel those names off,
right.
It's a hell of a lineup to try and get ahead of.
That's right. For those who don't remember, Cedric did qualify and was at the Olympia last year, but didn't make it onto the stage due to whatever he had going on at the time. He fell ill or wasn't up to par. So we're certainly hoping he actually gets on that stage this year and does his best. I agree with you, Peter. He's a difficult one to assess. He's taller than the other guys. He doesn't have Wolf standing next to him, who was comparable in size with height. That would have helped him a little bit. Like I say, he's a little bit of the odd man out in this lineup because you got the other guy, Ruli Winkler, that's going to be standing next to him. Now, Ruli has looked like he's made some progress this year. It looks like he's put on more muscle, which I'm not so sure he actually really needed. But, man, he's thick. He's really thick. He's one of the few guys, Peter, that I can honestly say I think that his presentation actually does take away from his ultimate placing, that he needs to learn how to control the muscles better and the art of display. If you can't display the physique, can't expect the judges to put you up very high.
That's correct. I mean, he burst onto the scene several years ago, didn't he? And it looked like, here we go. He won the New York Pro and he's good. Then he had 2 or 3 years where he was in and out and didn't progress. But this year, second to Dexter twice in South Africa and New York, really improved. Fuller, got rid of any midsection problems, maybe the best arms on the current scene anyway. And it looks, he came in hard. Sometimes he looks a bit watery, and he didn't look like that in South Africa. So I see him as a top 6 guy who could really shake a few feathers if he nails it.
All right, Justin Compton and Dallas McCarver, 2 guys I think. Dallas, I think, and I've said this many times, I thought should have been higher, maybe 3 spots, maybe even 4 spots last year. I could have literally had him up there. But he's made dramatic improvement over last year. Very impressive this year in qualifying for the Olympia. If he can just dial that in another 10%, I think he might be knocking on the door of a top 6. Justin Compton also into that mix. Again, a tremendous physique. Justin Compton's physique reminded me a lot of Phil Heath when he first turned pro. Now, he's going to have to refine and get that back up there just like Phil did. Has he made that progress, Peter? And might we possibly see Compton fighting for that top 6?
I think so. I mean, he had he was great in Orlando in 2014. Then 2 Arnolds, he didn't get it together. We had the midsection problems, but he looks like he's bounced back now. You look at Dallas, Justin, Nathan DeAsha would be another one. Nathan's 30, Dallas is 25, Justin is 28. These are probably the only 3 guys, maybe William Bonac, who are still improving, who still have room to improve, who seem to maybe be the future. I mean, Justin, I think, will be very, very competitive. I think he'll get it together. I see him challenging for a top 6 spot. We talk about size. Dallas McCarver just keeps growing. I mean, we've seen some photos this week.
He's huge.
5 pounds. He's as dry as hell. He's just enormous. And the funny thing about these three I've mentioned, they've all got that same attitude. It's almost an amateur attitude because they're on the way up. It's not like the seasoned pro, well, let the chips fall where they may. They're still hungry. And Dallas, they all have a great attitude as well. You know, Dallas is 25. You know, are we looking at future Mr. Olympia? Are we looking at a future Mr. Olympia in Justin when, you know, whenever Phil decides to call it a day? And Nathan is another one to look out for who will improve, who won't be lost for condition, has got this spectacular body parts that just show-stopping when he walks out.
Well, Nathan DeAsha is certainly one of the new guys on the block, along with Jocelyn Arowitz. These guys are tremendous. Steve Kuklo, who's just got a couple of years on these guys in terms of being a seasoned veteran. Those three guys also, I think, very similar physiques in terms of their conditioning, their muscularity. Boy, this thing is the most Bonac, who was my dark horse pick, actually, from last week when we were talking about Olympia. I like Bonac. I really like what he brings, especially up close, man. This guy's got some muscle, and more importantly, Peter, he's got a lot of separation, a lot of detail in that physique. Now, obviously, he's not the tallest guy in the world or the widest. He's a little bit narrow, and obviously, he's on the shorter side. But, man, when you consider some of the names that we're tossing around right now, and think, and this is why I say, you know, back to that Kevin top 10 thing, you start putting these names down there, and you keep kind of bumping Kevin down, or these are names that he's going to have to kind of leapfrog over. And that 9th, 10th, 11th spot looks pretty difficult right now.
Yeah, if everybody's in shape, it's going to be one hell of a contest. And if you get in the top 10, this is a hell of achievement for anybody. Yeah, William he's got that gnarly look, hasn't he? You know, it's muscle upon muscle. It's just the size and height factor might sort of count against him when he's standing next to some of these, you know, 280 pounders. You know, so I see this being as I think he'll improve. I think he got 8th last year. He was in a similar position to Dallas. Dallas last year was 13th. Should have been, like you said, in the top 10. Then William comes back, gets in the 8th. So he'll be looking to improve on that. He'll do well to improve on that. And I think that in Olympia terms, I mean, this is Justin's first Olympia, Dallas's second, Nathan's first. They're the guys to look out for. I think, you know, all three of them could well be the breakthrough athlete or say, wow, they've thrown the gauntlet down. Now watch out for this guy next year.
Absolutely, Peter. I mean, like I say, this, you know, there's other names in here, obviously, from Ben Pekulski to Max Charles. Is Akeem Williams in the show? I did see he qualified.
He's on the list. Max isn't doing it. Max Charles decided to
sit it out,
have a longer off season in preparation for next year. Yeah.
You know, Akeem, size-wise, muscularity-wise, can hang with literally anybody from Phil Heath into that, you know, projected top 5 or 6. Clearly, conditioning has been his Achilles heel. He looks like he's gotten better with that, but he's got a very young-looking physique in terms of muscle maturity, and again, when we talk about that, we're talking about separation of muscle groups, that type of thing. That becomes very evident at this Olympia level. But to me, Peter, right off the bat, this looks like the most competitive lineup that we've seen. We haven't even mentioned Victor Martinez yet. Now, Victor, the consummate veteran of this group, looked very good this year. It looked like he made, you know, some improvement of getting back to where he used to be. But has that ship sailed for Victor at this point?
Well, you know, we've seen him sort of not get back to his best 2007 the last few years. The same last year at the Olympia. But then this year, as you say, he seemed to, you know, be a lot better than he's been for a few years, especially in the thighs. He seemed to get some thigh size back. But I still think it's you know, it's a hell of a lineup if everybody's on for him to sort of, you know, dominate in the way he did do it. I think top 6, to be honest, is beyond him. I'd love to see him do it. You know, probably there isn't a nicer guy in bodybuilding than Victor. You always want him to do well, but it's a big task for him. So let's say he won't make the top 6. Let's tell him that, and that's all the motivation he needs.
Well, Peter, you've seen many Olympias, obviously, and I got to say, I think this is one of the most competitive. In terms of depth, how far back do you have to go to get a lineup this deep at the Olympia?
Well, I think you have to go back to the late 90s, probably well before that. You know, the Dorian lineups, you know,
Yeah.
Kevin, Flex Wheeler, Sean Ray.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Chris Columbia, Porter Cottrell, Charlie Claremont.
Yeah.
Where are we now? 8th, 9th? I can't remember. But, you know, those lineups were stacked. Yeah, so that it's comparable to that, I think. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking. And I was just kind of looking at some lineups earlier, kind of flipping back. And it's certainly not in the later 2000s here. It's been a 4 or 5 man show for the most part. Then it's dropped off pretty significantly. And I don't say that as any detriment to the Olympians that are, you know, placing obviously out. It's still the greatest bodybuilding show on earth. And the athletes aren't responsible for who else shows up. But yeah, just in terms of pure depth, I don't remember a lineup where we're talking about guys in potentially 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. I mean, conceivably, the 12th place guy in this show is a tremendous talent. I mean, you know, listen, we usually got a big drop off after top 6.
Yeah.
And even then, sometimes the last couple of years, I mean, after the top 3 or 4, it's started to, you know, drop a little bit off. There's guys in the middle of this pack that are going to be great athletes, you know, great bodybuilding. But I think, is this a resurgence of bodybuilding? People have been clamoring for the last few years. We need a return. We need, you know, back to the kind of the old school and all that kind of stuff. You and I hear a lot of the negative stuff that's out there, but I mean, who out of this lineup are people looking at that they're saying to themselves, like, you know, that they don't like these physiques? I mean, I see some tremendous physiques in there, all the way down to 10th.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the guys, most of them are pretty complete, and you know, if they're in shape, it'll be very competitive. But I think you know, you've got to look at this. You know, most of them got there by winning a show, which I think is always a good thing. You know, if you know, we used to have the top 3 getting through, and maybe that diluted the lineup some way. You know, because these guys have, for the most part, won a show this year. And I think that helps the competition. And also this blend of the youngsters coming through. You know, we had I don't know this for sure, but, well, I do know this for sure. 2011, 2012, we had nobody in the lineup under 30. You know, It just didn't happen. Guys aren't turning pro till the 30, but now we've got some young blood in there. And even somebody like Sean Roden, although he's 40, he's not battle worn. He had like 7, 8 years away from bodybuilding completely and came back. So he's not like, we can't even talk about Dexter and say, you know, he's an anomaly.
Yeah.
He's been doing it 20 odd years and looks as fresh as a daisy. But a lot of guys, when they've been doing it some time, you know, the attrition starts to kick in.
All right. Well, let's get to some before we move on with the 212, which I think is not too shy of being as exciting as the Open Olympia. These guys have really made their mark. We'll get into a second, but let's get that projected top 5, top 6, Peter.
Yeah, well, you know, Flex is start. Flex
No. In the Open.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were going to 212.
We are, but I've got to get that open first. So like I say, who we seen in the driver's seat, Peter? What does Phil Heath make it number 6? And are there any surprises in there?
I think the one that I would expect to crash in there would be Rowley. I can see Rowley getting in there. You know, you can reel off 2 or 3 other names, but there's only 6 places.
Yeah,
so
right.
when you start talking about your top 6, you end up with 10 names. Justin's got a chance of getting in there. I think he'll finish ahead of Dallas at this stage, but I think there'll be, you know, battle royals between those two in the next 2 or 3 years, because Dallas ain't finished yet, and Justin isn't in terms of development. So you're asking me in the top 5. Phil Heath, Dexter, Sean, Ramy, Rowley or Justin. Have I missed anybody major?
No, you got it. The problem is, like I say, you can come up with another 4 names that you could potentially put in there, and that's how deep it is, as we've talked about. That's about what I got. We're almost identical on our picks. The only ones I think you can flip flop. I would not be surprised if Big Ramy makes a statement this year. Again, he did finish ahead of Rodin in the Czech Republic. I saw a different Ramy out there. I saw a guy who was confident. I saw a guy who was much better with his posing and his display of his physique. If he's not too big, and I hate to even use that word, but again, he can, conceivably, he could drop 15 pounds, Peter, and still be the biggest guy on the stage, which kind of tells you how big this guy really is. But that's not going to help him at the Olympia level, standing next in between Phil Heath and Sean Rodin and Dexter Jackson.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We say shave some weight off and the detail will come through, but we're not really sure whether he's got those refinements are there yet. I mean, he's only been training about 5-6 years.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not there. Look at Matt Mendenhall, fantastic physique, but had that thick skin that would never allow anything deep separation to come through, or feathered separation certainly wasn't there. That may be the case with Big Ramy again. I hope I'm really wrong. I'd love to see this guy unleash the best physique he possibly can. That would be phenomenal.
Well, we may see that unleashed in just a few days now, Peter, but equally as exciting, the 212 has really come into its own, especially over the last couple of years. And, as big as the Phil Heath going for 6 is, you've got Flex Lewis right behind him going for 5. He's one back, and he don't seem to be slowing down at all. There was some speculation a year or so ago that he may jump into the Open and forgo that title, which, again, I was very adamant that would have been a huge mistake, I think, on Flex's part. Not because I don't think he could do well in that lineup, but if you're the best in the world at what you're doing and you're that far ahead of the pack, I mean, I say you just continue to be the best in the world and suck it up, make that weight. But, man, I'm looking down this list, Peter, and you got Samuel Haddad, Alex Cambronero, one of the better new guys, Guy Cisternino, one of the perennial top guys, Eduardo Correa from Brazil, David Henry, still in the mix, and like I say, still one of the best backs in the world. Jose Raymond, Ronnie Rockel, who actually qualified for both this year. He qualified for the 212 and the Open. Very wise decision, I think, electing to go into the 212. He would have got swallowed up into that Open lineup. Hidetaka Yamagishi, of course. Hidetaka, always a threat at that level, and certainly one of the best posers in the business, Peter. We've talked about that many times. And then you still got, Kim Jong-ho from Korea, Dobromir Daliv from Bulgaria. I mean, the giant killer Sean Clarita continues to impress despite not being one of the bigger guys. But, man, what a phenomenal physique. And then you got a couple of new guys like Ahmad Ashkenani and stuff who really made an impact this year. So what do you do with this one?
Yeah, again, one of the names Charles Dixon last year, I think
tank.
he should have been a lot higher. There's the tank in there, Yeah, these guys, I've got reservations about the Open in condition, but these 212 guys always get conditioned, don't they? Right away. It's a lesson to the other class. Flex Lewis, there was a time 2 years ago where there was this, should he move up? Because he was a bit frustrated because he felt he maxed out at 212 and he wanted to be the best bodybuilder he could be, and he felt that meant coming in at 220 or something. But he's come to terms with that. I mean, he's married. He's got a lovely daughter. He's got that gym out there. He's running a show in Memphis. He's got a partnership. He's in a really settled place in life, and he's no different from the 20-year-old junior that nobody knew.
Sure.
10 or 11 years ago. He's still got that same temperament. Very confident in what he's doing. I went to his wedding. And also at the wedding was Guy Cisternino and Jose Raymond. I don't think Dexter would be going to any Phil Heath weddings or, that. But these guys bond, they hang out. And Jose might not thank me for saying this, but he told me, he said, I love Flex. He said, I would love to be the 212 champ, but I wouldn't like to beat Flex. I just feel...
Right.
That would be a mortal sin. That shows the camaraderie which we used to use years ago between these two 12 guys. They're very entertaining. I think they should be paid more money. I don't know whether the prize money is going to be 400 grand for the winner of the Open, like it was suddenly jumped up last year.
Right.
That to me does nothing for selling tickets or fan appeal. But if some of that could have been used among the two 12 guys, I think everybody would agree that they deserve a bigger payday than they get. And I think Flex Lewis is very confident in his place in life and his place on the Olympia stage. He will be in condition, and I think he's going to take the fifth. Yeah. I didn't mean to pun there. Sometimes they themselves,
I was going to say, let's hope he doesn't take the fifth, Peter. We need him talking for interviews and especially for the seminar on Sunday. These guys are a very tight-knit group. We've talked about this in the past, but right off the bat, they were, because we gave them a platform. We tried this new thing called the 210 at the time, is what the weight restriction was, and that moved around a couple times before it settled in at 212. But these guys right off the bat knew that they were doing something special, knew that they had to kind of bring it, and because let me tell you something, it was only maybe a year or two into it where I was catching a little flack for the class, and hey man, what are we doing with this class, and where's it going, and I don't know if it's catching on, and there was not a lot of serious talk, but there was talk about well, maybe we made a mistake in putting this class in, and that quickly subsided because right on cue, man, these guys started coming out. The physiques were phenomenal. Like I said, they were always in condition, but you could see that the audience was always receptive to the fact that these guys brought it, man. I mean, you see Eduardo Correa out there; he is ripped from head to toe. Same thing. Jose, is a fire plug. The bearded lady, as he calls himself out there. Again, tremendous amount of muscle. Flex Lewis is tremendous. These guys always bring it. Guy Cisternino. You can go down the line. David Henry. So I think these guys earned their place, and I'm with you. I mean, if it was my checkbook, and I'm not making any claim that that it certainly is, but I would have liked to have seen 50 grand go over to those guys. I mean, honestly, I think they deserve it. And but that said, and I'm sure the prize money has gone up this year. I won't know that until I get to Vegas for these guys. But Flex Lewis is almost unbeatable in this class. He was sicker than a dog last year, and I mean, like, I ate something that didn't agree with him or something. He was literally throwing up in the back. We were, I was making goofy announcements to spare some time so we can get out there because they were literally trying to get him out of the barrel in the back and onto the stage. But he hung on to win that title. I mean, you talk about fighting for it. But if you can win under those circumstances, to me, he's as dominant in a 212 as Phil Heath is in the Open.
Exactly. And I'm only going to correct you, Bob, because I don't want anybody else to do it. It was 2 years ago when he was really sick.
2 years ago.
Yeah. And I was backstage with him, with Neil Hill. And there were people saying, don't let him go on. When I saw him, I thought, no, he's not going to win. His stomach was protruded. He was this. He was drained. He was almost green. And then he walked out, big smile, stomach gone, toughed it out and won the title. But that's where he comes from. The Welsh are a very tough blue-collar nation. That's in his blood. He used to play rugby. That's like the NFL without any padding. You just
right.
Sing as hard as you can. So yeah, he's made improvements, over the years. He didn't have a great back or a great chest, and he improved. He went away for 18 months, came back, finished second to Kevin English when he perhaps should have won. Then he took over. So again, same with Phil. It's his to lose in a way. If he nails it, then that's 5 championships.
Well, other than Tom Jones himself, my friend, Wales's finest export, of course, the rest of the lineup is not a bunch of slouches. I mean, I don't even know where to begin this list. Jose Raymond is always going to be up there. He's just got too much muscle to ignore. Certainly not as pretty as a Flex Lewis, and he doesn't claim to be. He just claims to have a ton of muscle and some great conditioning. And then, like I say, you get into a whole hodgepodge of guys. Sami El-Haddad, we haven't seen in a while. We're going to see him back on stage. Again, a new guy, Alex Cambronero, I think is a tremendous talent. He's going to have a tough time with those guys. I mean, he's got a little bit of seasoning. I think, in the gym that he needs in the next couple of years. But, David Henry is a former 202 Olympia champ. And again, that's when we first put the class in place. You can't look past him either. I mean, he just continues to kind of bring that same... From the back, I tell you what, he's as good, if not better, than Flex Lewis from the back. It's almost reversed in this case.
Yeah. I mean, that back is comparable with Phil Heath in terms of detail and shape. And if he had legs, Flex could be in trouble, But I see Jose moving to second like he was last year. I think at the Arnold, to me, it was more, no disrespect to Hide whatsoever, but it was more that Hide was near his best and Jose wasn't. He wasn't as good as the Olympia. He wasn't as full. He wasn't as splitting. And given his structure, he's got to be full and vascular and dry as hell. And if he comes in like that, I think, his muscle will just take him to that runner-up spot. You mentioned Alex Cambronero. I see him and Dobry Deleb from area as two guys that probably won't do as well as they should. I think that
sure.
They both look phenomenal, but there's a little bit of, let's see them a couple of times before we start moving them around or whatever. So I look out for them. I mean, Alex has got a tremendous shape. I mean, it's, dare we say, a classic physique.
Yeah, we could say that. Gaetano Cisternino, Guy has made improvements steadily. Year after year after year, we've seen him improve and improve and improve. He certainly merits consideration in this group. And all these guys have kind of beaten each other with the exception of Flex, obviously, who doesn't go out on the circuit, nor should he. The rest of these guys are wide open. I mean, they kind of beat each other at a lot of these shows. Mark Dugdale also in the mix. Again, we talk about that classic physique. Mark's always bringing a great package. And I think one of the best physiques I've seen from Mark was just this year. I can't remember what the show. It might have been Toronto or the week after. I think he put it all together in Vancouver, if I'm not mistaken. Again, Eduardo Correa, another perennial top 5 guy with that trademark conditioning. Now, I believe Correa has a new coach this year. I don't think he is with Chris Aceto anymore.
I don't know, Bob. Do you know who the new coach is?
I saw it the other day, and I drawn a blank on it. But that'll be interesting to see what kind of a package he brings. As they've been working together for some years now. Maybe he just thought it was time for a change or whatnot. But that's a tremendous physique as well. I mean, that conditioning you can't turn your head at. I mean, Eduardo will always get rewarded for that, as he should. And then you got Sean Clarita, one of the new giant killer. All due respect to Danny Padilla, of course. And again, at a $170 something or whatever, he's certainly one of the lighter guys in the class. But he's made great improvement. The new guy, I tell you what I was impressed with, was Ahmad Ashkenani from Kuwait. That's not a name a lot of people are going to know going into the Olympia. But I tell you what, you may know his name after the 212 Olympia because this guy's got a lot of muscle.
Yeah, he's packed with muscle, great back, great good shape for him as well. And he won in Tampa. We were saying at the time, a bit more detail, and he'll be very, very competitive in this lineup. And sort of going back to Eduardo Correa, if somebody's ripped, somebody's more ripped, you say they're shredded, he's in a world of his own. You just have to stay career conditioned. It's beyond shredded. So if it came down to condition only, I mean, he'd be walking home. Who else did you mention? Yeah, Ahmad. We mentioned him.
You got the tank, Charles Dixon, who you mentioned earlier. Again, one of the thickest guys out there. Conditioning is always his battle, and in this group, like I say, when you got an Eduardo, I mean, just listen. Being in great condition is one thing. Like I say, when you're standing next to Eduardo Correa and David Henry and Flex Lewis. These guys are just another level, but that's, again, the best of the best. That's why we do this at the Olympia. Again, you're going to take a guy in this class, much like the Open this year, and the guy in 8th or 9th is going to be a tremendous, fantastic bodybuilder.
exactly. And you mentioned Sean Clarida. I'll be interested to see what happens to him. I think he should have been higher last year, even given, his lack of inches and poundage. I mean, I don't think he'll mind me saying it. If he was 4 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier and had the same shape and development, he'd be up there.
Sure.
As you say, he's worked at it. You've seen the progress the last 6-7 years. It's been phenomenal. He's a real poster guy for the little guy,
Well, Peter, this Olympia is certainly shaping up to be one of probably the most competitive, and again, in probably 20 years, if not more. So I'm really looking forward to this. I did talk to Robin Chang the other day. Ticket sales are through the roof. They have absolutely obliterated anything we did last year. So I'm very happy to hear that. They're actually going to open up some of the obstructed seat views and stuff like that. They don't even generally sell at these events because you actually have to put a disclaimer because you can't see. You're either on the side or there's a pole in front, whatever. But I guess they're going to open these up because, man, we are going to be sold out. Press conference is going to be off the hook. I can't wait to get Kevin seated up there and kind of see what he brings to the table. It's always a fun time to open that weekend with the press conference. So it's going to be a good one, my friend. I'm like I said, I'm bummed out that you're not going to be there. I always look forward to seeing you down in that front row of that press conference, kind of doing what we do. And I have learned from the master, my friend. My hat's to you, of course.
Well, look, I mean, I'll be still popping online, doing play-by-play based on the webcast. Other things, I'll be involved. Definitely, I'll be involved. But most of the team MD gets there tomorrow. There'll be interviews done tomorrow night. So things will start going up on Thursday. The press conference is 12 noon on Thursday. Yeah. We'll be reporting from that and have footage of that and all the play-by-plays, the wrap-ups, the interviews. MD is going to give the best coverage of anybody on the planet in terms of taking what the fans want to know and giving them what they want to know.
For those who certainly look at, yeah, definitely. I will definitely, do what I can. Me and DJ, of course, back in position at the press conference. For those who can't attend, there is a webcast on Amazon. If you've got Amazon Prime, I guess it's free. If not, I think there's a small charge to it. But just get yourself some Amazon Prime. It's a great service. We use it all the time. But so the webcasting will be out there for those to watch around the world, of course. But Peter, appreciate you taking some time here, talking Olympia talk as always. And we'll catch up with you over the weekend. And that's going to do it for another edition of The Last Rep. For Peter McGough, I'm Bob Cicherillo. We're out.